Hello, my name is Jeff Berg. I was born in 1958. I'm over 60 years old. Let's start.
Okay, so this is my YouTube interview. We're going to be talking about the changes in environmentalists in their lifetime and how society has changed through the time in the way we interact with the natural environment. Okay, so my first question is, what are your memories from the 1960s about the start of the modern ecological movement?
All right, let's see. I was born in 1958, so in the 60s. The first thing I remember is one of my chores, I think when I was 7 or 8, I was to take out the trash and burn it in the backyard in this barrel. And everybody did that in my neighborhood. And so that was, and I remember doing that probably, through the 60s, maybe in the early 70s, there's a city ordinance where you couldn't do that anymore. So that was my first, encounter with, the city planners trying to cut back on some of those problems. I also remember growing up as a kid, the factories in town, how their pollution you would smell on certain days of the week. Like we had a Kellogg's factory, and you would smell the cereals, but we also had Purina, and you'd smell like dog food and other things that weren't as pleasant. So I remember those things, and also I do remember they had leaded gasoline, and they were trying. The government was the businesses were starting to offer unleaded gasoline, and I don't know how that occurred. I'm not sure if the government was pushing businesses to do that, but I remember you were offered that at a gas station, and I can't remember if your car took both gas or both leaded and unleaded, but all I remember about that is in the early 70s we started buying cars that only used unleaded gasoline. So that was, again, the government probably was starting to put restrictions on what you could use.
So, how do you think we are doing now comparing to the 1960s?
Well, I would say there's a huge change in not only government policies, but the way people see things. Climate change is a huge problem. I'm a strong advocate for climate, or for doing whatever we need to get that under control. So I'm very progressive in that regard. I want to make sure that we save this planet for my generation, and definitely for my future, for future generations, because it's a huge problem. You can see it everywhere. Like we have relatives that live in Florida, and you can see all the changes that are going on in Florida. The increase in water level, there's so many, because of global warming and the emissions that we produce has melted the glaciers, and now that's raising the water level, and that's changing a lot of things, especially in Florida, and we know people in Florida, and so they're directly affected by it. Up here in Michigan, we see drastic weather changes, and that's different than what I used to see when I was growing up. We'd have tornadoes and all those things, but we have so many more of those now, and so many different types of weather systems than we did back then.
Okay, so have you seen a change in your hometown specifically, and how is this?
Well, I grew up in Battle Creek, and definitely, we're lucky we live in Michigan because we have fresh water. We have the Great Lakes. We have a lot of fresh water, but we also had a lot of factories that use that water to drain their pollution. After they manufacture their product, produce their product, there's all these the problems, and so those were put into the river water systems and washed away. Well, now those things seeped into the water system, and now we're having to deal with those issues. Many cities in Michigan have been tested for this PFAS contaminant, and there's some problems in just about every town, and, located next to the factories. To finding out, Flint. I lived in Flint for several years, and there's a huge water problem with Flint, and so this problem is very prevalent, and we're gonna have to deal with it now and in the future.
All right, what comes to your mind when you hear the statement of how humans interact with the natural environment?
Well, it's so part of social media is really, I think, we can use that, because it's obviously you see it, you see the changes going on. It's so prevalent out there that you really can't deny it. I mean, there's people that want to deny these problems, but it's there. I mean, it's there, and it's getting worse. And so I think, in social media, you can find information. You can do something about it. You can make a difference, and you can be an advocate and fight for these changes, or you can, and deny them. But the problems aren't going to go away. I can't even remember the question.
It was pretty good.
Okay.
All right, thank you.